Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys 1/6 scale Star Wars Revenge of the Sith figure unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at Kit Fisto. It's always a great day when we get another member of the Jedi Council in 1/6 scale. Now, I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. I've popped a link to their site in the description, along with the discount code Justin's Collection, for 5% off your order if you decide to buy from them. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. If you're heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, so you're notified as soon as brand new Star Wars content goes live. Poor Kit, he was done so dirty in the prequels. Yes, he had that moment in the Geonosis arena where he force-pushed over Battle Droid C-3PO and then smiled to camera, but he didn't really look like this in Attack of the Clones. This piece is more Revenge of the Sith based. While he lasted longer than some of the other Jedi trying to arrest Palpatine, he was still obliterated by Papa Palps. If it wasn't for the Clone Wars, either version, I don't think I'd have as big of a connection to Kit. I might not have even picked him up. As for the box art, up front, an image of the actual figure, and you can tell that because there's a wrist peg showing. I'm not sure why they didn't cover that up with his sleeve. Metallic foil Star Wars logo below that shot, then a glossy wraparound banner, Revenge of the Sith themed, with a Jedi starfighter behind Kit, orange as the accent color, and some more figure photography on it. This time, Kit is wearing his Jedi robe, though. This video is brought to you by JustinsCollection.shop, the home of the figure first aid kit, as well as other accessories to help your collection be the best it can be. The first aid kit contains multiple tools to help you with maintenance, styling rooted hair, and much more. We also sell crotch grabbers, soft rubber tips to prevent damage, and they're compatible with most modern Hot Toys base molds. Acrylic risers come in multi-packs. They're optically clear, thick and sturdy, and stackable. Check out the link to JustinsCollection.shop in the description. I'm undecided right now if I'm going to display him with or without the Jedi robe. We'll just have to try it, I guess, and see what works best. On the side of the box, another picture of Kit, Jedi starfighter behind him. Then on the other side, his lightsaber spilling over the edge from the front cover, and what do you know, another Jedi starfighter. And then around the back, warnings, legal information, and their store locations. Oh, that is some sick artwork for the slipcover. The composition is glorious. Two Phase 2 clones flanking Kit, him in focus in the middle, soft focus on the destroyed battle droid up front, fires in the background, some smoke, the whole thing is at an angle. The only thing that would have made this even cooler is if Kit was wearing his Clone Wars armor. It would have made way more sense for this picture. Also, why did they go with CGI clone troopers? Like, they made 1/6 scale Phase 2 clones. They didn't need to use the CGI ones. Anyway, first in-hand impressions for Kit Fisto. He is extremely top-heavy. I'm worried about stability. Will he stand? That is the million-dollar question. We will sure as shit find out throughout the course of the video. What we're going to do now is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first. Quick question for you all watching. Do you like these sticker base toppers? I do, because it adds some extra visual interest, some flair to the top of Star Wars bases, rather than them looking all identical in the collection. You can remove it, and then Kit's base will look identical to everyone else's, but this makes the base feel more bespoke to him, if that makes sense. The Jedi Council room chambers as well, with the high gloss over the top. Who wouldn't want to display that? If you don't, then we've got the tiles underneath it, with some red chipping around the edges. Kit Fisto for the nameplate, then up top, a height adjustable, wide scoop crotch grabber. I didn't know this was a 2-pack. We also get a 1/6 scale A New Hope Obi-Wan. I am so sorry, that was a terrible joke. But I see this more so as part of his outfit, as an optional extra, rather than being an accessory. That's why it's not laid out here with the rest of the stuff. His Jedi robe will try this out on him later on, but For right now, there's a lot of fabric because Kit Fisto is quite tall. It's a plush, lightweight, textured brown material, and it's wired in certain sections. What a neat little bonus, these Clone Wars gauntlets and some Clone Wars armored hands. Does it make me want to pick up a second? Not really. Every now and then I can just switch the hands and the gauntlets. It should be quite straightforward to refresh Kit in the display. I've seen some comments online saying that these gauntlets aren't 100% accurate to the animation. They're more like an approximation of what they would look like in live action, and I get that. But seeing as though it's not the main look for Kit, arguably this is a Revenge of the Sith piece, I'm still glad they were included. There's some weathering on the surface, and on one side we've got a comms panel with this heavy black outline around it. But for hands, what an abysmal showing, not just for the Clone Wars gloved armored ones, but for the normal hands as well. We'll get there. The gloves look good. There's skin texture on the fingers, this wrinkling, speckling on the armor plating, the markings, that's all fine. But what is this array? 2 open palm hands and 1 gripping hand. You couldn't even give us 2 gripping hands. Hot Toys, you stingy bastards, you. We need 2 gripping hands with characters that hold lightsabers. It just makes sense. Speaking of lightsabers, I still can't believe what they did with Kit's hands. There's a very shiny metallic chrome finish on Kit's hilt. It's devoid of any color. Just silver, then black as the accent. We do have a switch out CoverTech wheel. There's a long one and a short one. I've got the long one plugged in there at the moment. I would suggest just leaving that in place. Just in case you want to pop this on his belt ever, you don't need to go rifling through the box trying to find this mini CoverTech wheel to make the switch. On both lightsabers are compatible with both blades. They're frostier than usual. They've done that to help light transfer through to the tip, and they're extremely desaturated. More so the straight or tapered blade versus the swooshing one, but I mean, I know why they're doing it, so light can transfer through properly like the diffusion, but why not give us 2 sets of blades then? Because not everyone is going to use the LED light-up saber. If you're rocking him with the non-light-up hilt, this blade just looks sad. The swooshing one, saturation-wise, is better for the leading edge. The trailing edge is basically just translucent plastic, but it's still not the correct look for a swooshing effect. It's meant to be like this. Straight edge, curved arc behind it, not an equal fan all the way down to the hilt. Yes, this works if he's swooshing it back and forth like that, but if he's swinging his lightsaber, this is the correct look for a lightsaber trail. They've shown off a corrected effect with various prototypes, but for some reason, it never seems to make it into production. The light-up hilt is done in the same metallic chrome silver as the standard one, but now we've got a cable sticking out of it. You connect that cable to the junction box, then using this clip, it can be stored on his belt, or you can switch out that clip for a C-clamp, and now it can connect up to the crotch grabber arm. I would suggest doing that because Kit, spoiler alert, has a pleather belt on, and putting this on his back, potentially having it pull against that pleather, it might accelerate deterioration. There's a USB-C port at the bottom, but no included USB-C cable. Hot Toys, give us cables. Come on. And lastly, the detail. It's so sad because the detail's really good on these. All of that wrinkling and the webbed fingers, which you couldn't see with the fingerless gloved hands, and the raised bumpies, the darker speckling on the green flesh, the size of these things versus standard 1/6 scale hands, that's impressive. We just don't have a full array of gestures. These splayed out finger open palm hands already installed on him right out of the box. 2 additional splayed out finger hands. This one has the fingers curled in more, and for the other, the fingers are splayed out less than those 2. This has got to be a joke, right? Like they're giving us 1 gripping hand for a Jedi who holds a lightsaber. Nah, I ain't about this. You can pry the fingers open, it's soft plastic, pop the lightsaber hilt in there, no problem, but we really, really needed 2 of these. And the worst part is they're trying to do this again with Saesi Tin. They're using the same exact mold as Kit Fisto's hands for him. Give us a second gripping hand, and while you're at it, chuck in an extra Kit Fisto hand with Sayasitin. What we're going to do now is get Kit Fisto himself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that, which surprisingly took me a lot longer than expected to accomplish. Just, nothing special, standing there in a neutral pose. No. Heavy head sculpt means top-heavy figure. Pulling the figure back is this head sculpt's MO. You are going to need to fight it and work with the ankles and adjust the legs and the hips constantly to keep this guy standing. When you settle on a pose, I would settle on it for a while. With that being said, just standing there, proportions, massive tick, tailoring for the outfit, another tick, then the head sculpt, even from a distance, it screams Kit. It infuses this piece with so much personality and presence. It almost makes all of that balancing I had to do to get him standing worth it. Yes, there's a wider margin for error with an alien in 1/6 scale, that kind of head sculpt versus an actual person where the likeness needs to be perfect. Still, there's no denying that they knocked this out of the park. What a head sculpt, up close and personal, kicking things off with this masterpiece of a sculpt for Kit Fisto. Let's talk about the one complaint I have first. We'll get it out of the way, then the rest of the time can just be me gushing about it. The tentacles. Around the back, they're clumped up. We've got 2 sets of 2 on either side, then this mass of them in the middle. They're far too heavy. They should have been made out of a lightweight but flexible material, going with dense, thick vinyl or PVC, whatever the heck this is. It means getting Kit Fisto to balance on the double ball pegs for his ankles is quite tricky. We'll talk about that again in the pros and cons segment. But everything else, the skin texture, the sculpted leather wraps, the speckling of different shades of green on the flesh, the darker brown shading, the red around the eyes, the big, globy, glossy black eyes, the teeth, separate little pieces inside the mouth painted in high gloss. It's a 10, this head sculpt. That looks exactly like the prosthetic mask the actor was wearing on set in episode 3 from every angle. The shape and size of it is just right. It fits on the body exactly how you'd want. It's not too high or too low on the neck there. And it's a single piece sculpt down into his outfit. So no split underneath the jaw. It's completely seamless. There's been almost no degradation from the prototype to the production piece. How they were able to capture this leather grain texture and the fidelity, the crispness of the wrinkles for the flesh. You can feel all of the skin texture. It's such a tactile experience. Then the front tentacles, they're wired. And the wires actually work for once. They're not like Ahsoka's Leku where you can't really do anything with them. These are properly posable. The back tentacles are just one solid massive sculpt, as you already know. No wires in them, you can't move them around. Maybe if you heated up the plastic and then held it in place as it cooled down, then you could reshape them, but I'm not brave enough to try that. I also like the dark shading at the bottom of the tentacles. How about the outfit and the body? The head sculpt is only part of the story. It's a very big part of the story. If they hadn't have nailed the head sculpt, this would have been a fail, but I'm pleased to report the outfit is just as good as the sculpt. The thin, lightweight, but textured coffee-colored brown fabric, that looks extremely screen accurate, and we've got wires on the outer edges of these front tabards. So one of my favorite things to do with those wires is grab this excess fabric, pull it over the top of the cummerbund to simulate weight as though these are heavy textured material sitting over the top of this fabric belt piece. I do it around the back as well, but it's pretty ugly back here, so just have most of the fabric pinched at the back. You can't see it thanks to the tentacles. Around the front, make that look as good as possible. Then you can shape the tabards over his shoulders, squaring them up if you so choose, or you can flatten them out to give him that episode 2 more rounded look. I prefer the squarer aesthetic, so that's what I'm going to run with. There's a darker undershirt that I think is stitched in place. This is also stitched right there. I'm not sure if you can see it, but in person you can. It's pinched in there. And he's got a lighter undershirt underneath the darker one. There's a vertical weave on that undershirt. It looks a bit out of scale, but from a distance, it doesn't throw anything off. Not a huge fan of the stitching around the edges of the sleeves. If you are going to do that, you may as well wire them, because you can feed that wire in the stitched edge there. They didn't go with wires because maybe they were worried about them causing issues with the Clone Wars armor going over the top of the forearms. I don't think that would have been a problem. Then underneath the outer sleeves, we've got some inner ones. They ride up high. I've tried to pull them down. They simply don't want to stay there. Hot Toys, pleather belt as usual. The canisters are sculpted plastic. This pouch around the back is sculpted plastic as well. Same with the belt buckle. Functional cover tech clip. Oh, another pouch just off to the side next to the lightsaber. You can slot the hilt into that cover tech clip using the wheel. It's not the most secure connection in the world. I would suggest dialing in the pose first, then installing this. Now, back to the canisters for a second. They look good. They're in scale. They're nice and small, but that black one, technically, based off set photos of Kit, should be silver. And then to be accurate to Clone Wars, they should be on this side. They could have been swappable, like a clip on the back, or maybe even magnetic. They decided to lock them in place. These front skirt pieces, they're wired, but then the inner skirt, there's no wires there. You can have these doing something, but the rest of the fabric just drapes down, so there's no consistency. I would prefer to have everything just hanging there versus only some pieces be billowing off in the wind, selling dynamic poses. Ooh, very lightweight fabric for the brown trousers. Not as textured as the lighter brown stuff with the weave going on. They're a lot smoother. The boots. Let's discuss this crime. Leather boots. The leather grain is decent. We've got this buckle integrated with the strap, but no pin going through the holes, so that's a bit strange. There's weathering over the top, some weathering around the edges for the soles, but no tread on the underside. However, the speckling continues under here. Why are they pleather? This little section where the top piece sits over the boot, even the strap, they could have used either one of those design elements to disguise a split cut. They could have and should have been made out of sculpted plastic. I won't harp on about it now. We've got to try out the robe look, then the Clone Wars armor. Which one am I going to do first? I reckon the Clone Wars pieces. Nah, dude, this is too dope. How could you not display him like this? If you don't have any other Clone Wars figures, then okay, doesn't make any sense. If you do, display him with your Clone Wars collection until we get the rest of the Palpatine's arrest crew. And if we don't, then that's where he can stay, because the gauntlets, cinching the ends of the sleeves in, deleting that baggy look, it tightens everything up. It makes him look more sleek, but also muscular at the same time, flaring out the tabards over his shoulders. It helps his proportions, and now there's a pop of white to the front of the outfit. We've got extra detail with the weathering and the comms panel and the markings, but it's not perfect. The one complaint I have is no matter what you do to adjust the gauntlets, as soon as you move his hands, you're going to see those green wrist pegs. If only they'd have included these big oversized wrist pegs in black plastic as well as green, then we could have swapped them out and that gap wouldn't have been as big of an eyesore as it is. Could you bring the brown fabric for the sleeves through the gauntlets and cover them up? Yes, but then you'd have some random brown fabric poking out in that gap, and it would look just as unsightly as those visible wrist pegs. And they're adjustable. If you want this to be his elbow guard, you can rotate them round if you so choose. Free floating enough, that's not a problem. How about the Jedi robe on Kit? Let's do it. So here it is. It's fine. As far as Jedi robes go, you need to include them if you're making 1/6 scale Jedi, and they have. I could really leave it at that. It's a lightweight plush fabric, but you already know that. I like the color. It's dark enough so there's contrast with all of the other browns for his outfit. It's not wired enough though. There's no wires down the front. There's no wires in the sleeves. There's no weathering at play. There's only wires for the hood and around the inside for the collar for the base of his neck. You can't even properly get him to wear the hood unless you tuck the tentacles inside the robe, then bring it over the top. And even then, that probably won't look good. Plus, you'd run the risk of brown dye transfer onto the tentacles, ruining the head sculpt entirely. There's lining on the inside of the hood, but for the rest of it, it's just that raw fabric. Shaping the hood over his shoulders isn't tricky to do, but this has the opposite effect on his proportions versus the Clone Wars armor. It makes him look bigger and bulkier and more cumbersome. The Clone Wars armor came across sleek. It's just not my vibe. Ditch the robe, pop the LED lightsaber in his hand. Junction box on his belt. I would suggest, like I said in the accessory segment, installing it on the crotch grabber arm, but for the purposes of this segment, that's where I'll leave it. Flicking the switch. Are you all ready for this? This is what it looks like off. This is what it looks like on. It's surprisingly decent. Does it compare to a Fusion Reactor's custom saber? No, not really. Let's dim the lights, then we can do that comparison. Et voila, light is transferring nicely through to the tip of the blade. It's not evenly lit throughout, it's brighter at the bottom than the top, but it's pretty effective. Until you compare it to the competition. Fusion Reactors. This looks like a real 1/6 scale lightsaber. It is so bright. It's casting a green glow on everything. Like, it's literally illuminating Kit Fisto. In my collection, I'll be going with the Fusion Reactors one. The design of the hilt is close enough to the Hot Toys one. It's painted in metallic silver. It looks good. You can barely see the thing in his hand anyway. But the blade, it's all about that blade. One single braided USB cable, just plugs straight into your power supply, no junction box needed. Wait, are y'all seeing this? Even with the studio lights turned on, the bright white core in the middle of the Fusion Reactor's saber looks incredible. Yes, like I said, the detail isn't as sharp as the Hot Toys saber on the hilt, but the ribbing up top looks more than serviceable. I'll pop a link to Fusion Reactor's Instagram in the description. If you've got Kit on the way, I highly suggest considering this lightsaber upgrade. For a quick side-by-side comparison, on the left, Hot Toys Kit Fisto, and on the right, Nightmare Fuel, Sideshow Kit Fisto. He's too short, the proportions are incredibly doll-like, the outfit is pink. Not sure why that's the case. The head sculpt doesn't look anywhere near as good. If you are trying to pick between these two, there is no contest. It's got to be the Hot Toys Kit Fisto every day of the week. Pretty good, actually, scale-wise. Next to Anakin, Kit is taller, so he's a pretty sizable piece. My Anakin, by the way, for those wondering, does have rooted hair on the Hot Toys head sculpt and a lighter skin tone than stock. This isn't what Kit looked like in episode 2. The mask that the actor was wearing on set was completely different to episode 3. But if you don't care about that, and you still want him in your episode 2 display anyway, here's Kit next to a B1 battle droid. Just like with the other comparisons, Kit is the taller of the two. Going over articulation, starting off with Kit's head sculpt. Fixed neck, but ball joint at the base of it. Big tentacles around the back, wired tentacles around the front, moving them out of the way for maximum range. That looks ridiculous, but, you know, if you need more range, you need more range. Looking forward to there, looking up to there, which is further than I expected. Bringing these back down. Swivel is restricted because of how these sit over the shoulders, but we do get some pivot side to side. Arms completely flush down by his sides, going up to there only. Not sure why they're this restricted. forward and back on intense ratchets. Like, I'm fighting them to get the arms to go forward. Butterfly joint to the shoulder that hinges up and down. Swivel at the bicep, ratchets for the double bend at the elbow. The sleeve does come down, exposing the wrist peg, but there's enough excess fabric you can totally hide it. Then, speaking of the wrist peg, it's a ratcheted hinge and swivel. Torso crunching forward to there, heavily padded, multiple layers of clothing over the top, not much range going back, more than forward, but only just. Swivel, and some pivot side to side. Legs going forward to there, moving very freely. Going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh. Ratcheted double bend at the knee, going past 90. Then good old-fashioned pleather boots with a double ball peg inside of them. Forward and back, rotation, as well as ankle tilt. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing is what a stupid array of hands they've given us. 1 gripping hand, in Clone Wars armor, and normal. Why do we not have 2? They need to give us 2 gripping hands, always with Jedi figures. Then closed fists, relaxed open palm hands, force push hands, and 1 gripping hand. That just does not make sense to me. The second annoying thing is leather boots. Come on, Hot Toys. This boot design was begging to be split cut and sculpted plastic. They've literally given you the perfect spot where you could have hidden that split cut. But they went pleather, and that means eventually these boots, they're going to crack and flake and degrade on you. The third annoying thing, I was nervous this was going to be a problem. I assumed they would solve for it. Because just looking at this design, you know he's going to be unstable unless you make these tentacles out of a lightweight material. They didn't do that. There is so much mass back here. It's pretty difficult to get him to stand. If you get the balance just right, and you finagle the ankle joints and get the center of gravity in the correct position, then he will stand, but you will be fighting this guy for a very long time, trying to make sure he's stable. The first cool thing is the Clone Wars armor. It's a little pack-in, it costs them virtually nothing to do this. Thin, lightweight plastic, but it greatly enhances the value and versatility of this piece. Say you're not interested in collecting Episode 3 figures, only Clone Wars, now he will suit your collection because they chuck these and the hands in. The second cool thing is their use of wires, in the outfit and the tentacles. Having them along the edges of the tabards, being able to fold these bits over the top of the cummerbund, simulating weight as though this is heavy fabric spilling over the top of the belt. It not only adds to realism, but it helps you dial in the pose correctly and make it look like the outfit is flowing in the right direction. The third cool thing is this was the precedent. This is what Sideshow gave us back in the day. It was okay, but by today's standards, it pales in comparison to the Hot Toys release. The color of the outfit, the texture of the material, the thickness of it, then the head sculpt. This is you. This is the guy she tells you not to worry about. Wrapping up on Hot Toys, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith / Clone Wars, Kit Fisto. This figure is great. Is he perfect though? Is he exceptional? No, and no. He comes close, but I don't think he quite clears that bar. I'm very comfortable with leaving him at great. Let's talk about the cons. The head sculpt is extremely heavy. The back tentacles are not wired, which means you can't adjust them to get his center of balance to be correct for the pose that you're trying to pull off. I think the head sculpt could have been lighter, or those tentacles could have been wired. Either way, they needed to do something. The body is sturdy, but not sturdy enough to combat the heavy head sculpt. Then we've got pleather outfit elements. In 2025, nothing needs to be made out of pleather. I've seen you sculpt plastic belts and boots and make them look better than their pleather counterparts. Hot Toys, you can do it, so please quit it with the pleather. Then, the hands. Only 1 gripping hand. I don't need to say more on that, I've already ranted enough. And the lightsaber blades, they're too pale. But everything else, the proportions, the outfit, the look of the head sculpt, the look of this entire piece, impressive enough to almost make me forget about all of the issues this has. Not quite, but once he's in a pose, everything is dialed in correctly. I reckon he's going to come to life. So at the end of this, do I recommend him? Yes. But go in knowing full well a lot of work is going to be required on your part to make sure he is stable in dynamic poses. You will be fighting that head sculpt, but it is so worth doing. Now, I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. I've popped a link to their site in the description, along with the discount code Justin's Collection, for 5% off your order if you decide to buy from them. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. If you're heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.